Do you know what it means to create capacity in your life? Hey ladies, I'm back, and today I'm super excited to introduce Melanie Sodka. I interviewed Melanie a few months back, and today we are launching it. Melanie is the founder of Egocake, a disruptive framework and coaching platform to transform high-achieving individuals from overcommitting to thriving in their current environment. So I actually met Melanie at a TEDx talk, and I actually didn't hear her speak because I went to the washroom, but I watched her TEDx after and really connected with her. And I said, my people need to hear you. How often as women are you saying, I don't have enough time? It has become a cultural epidemic of, I do not have enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough energy. I can't. This is part of our capacity. It's something that we've created in our lives to not have enough. And of course, when we're looking outside of ourselves and everyone else is saying, I don't have enough, we fit in. But you're not here to fit in. You're here to feel ease and alignment and at home within your body and in your mind and relationships in your life. And I'm here to tell you that things can change. You can change. Your life circumstances can change. But you have to make different choices. And it can be something as simple as like in the moment, in that little tiny precious moment when you want to say yes to something, instead you say, I don't have the capacity for that right now. So we're going to dive in, and I also want to give you a heads up. I haven't formally announced this yet, but it's on my website. Melanie is going to be one of 3 speakers at my Alive event. So Alive is happening in February. Tickets are on sale now. You can head on over to my website at heatherchauvin.com. You'll see it on the front page, or you can go to heatherchauvin.com/alive. We have a 1-day option and a 2-day option. This is an event where 75 women, we're going to have 75 women on the first day and maybe about 20 on the second day. It's an intimate event where you are going to be surrounded by game-changing women. You can have a career, you can be a business owner, whoever you are, we are all coming together at our core because there's one common denominator. We want to raise our families. We want to live our lives both personally and professionally while feeling alive. So if this is you, head on over to heatherchauvin.com/alive and purchase your ticket today. Because if you purchase your ticket before December 24th, so Christmas Eve, you will be gifted a $2,000 bonus. You heard that right, a $2,000 bonus. I'm going to be doing an Energy Masters online intensive. This is a 4-hour intensive in January. All the dates, everything are on that page. And yeah, we're going to come collectively as a group, and you are going to be gifted. I'm going to show you my energetic time management process, how to create space and capacity for yourself, your family, and your 2020 vision. So head on over to heatherchauvin.com/alive, purchase your ticket now, and let's dive into Melanie's interview. All right. Welcome, Melanie. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks for having me.
So you and I have not known each other that long, but I feel like we really instantly connected. And we did sleep in the same bunkie together.
We did. Beside each other.
Yes, beside each other. But I'm so curious. First, I met you at TEDx, and I unfortunately didn't hear your talk because I had to go to the washroom and they wouldn't let me back in the room until you were done. And I was like, no. And it was all about creating capacity in your life. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so perfect for my community. So I wanted to talk about that. Like, what does it mean to be a capacity creator? And like, how did this concept even become a thing for you?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for, for allowing me to share this with your community. You have a thriving community, and it's pretty amazing and inspirational. So, what I can share with you and your listeners is, what does it mean to be a capacity creator? Number one, it means to really understand really our committal tendencies. Like, how do we say yes? Why do we say yes to things? And the flip side, like, why do we say no? And what is it that makes us say no? There's so many of us, Heather, as you know, like, we're just a lot of overcommitted people who are trying to get things done faster, quicker, more efficiently, just really to enjoy life. But we get caught up in a lot of overcommittal tendencies, thinking we have more capacity than we do. Now, I just want to draw a quick distinction between capacity and time. Time has been measured for years and years and decades and centuries in terms of, how much time do we have in a day? How much time does it take to complete a task? Like, all these time management skills and training. And where I like to pivot from this is really look at it differently through a different lens called capacity. Now, capacity is about energy. It's about passion. And those two things result in fulfillment. And if we look at when somebody asks us to do something, to be part of something, we can instantly measure it in time. But if we take a step back and say, wait a minute, do I have the energy for this? Do I have the passion for this? And will this fulfill my greatest objectives, like the things that I really want to accomplish in my life? You will probably get a more centered answer. So that's really a little bit about what capacity is.
I think that's a really good distinction, because a lot of people are like, I want more time, I want more time, I want more time. But really, it sounds like they want more capacity.
Yeah. And like, our capacity is finite, essentially. Like, we have a certain amount of capacity. We can stretch our capacity, we can shrink our capacity, but it's about building. It's about building a sustainable capacity that really avoids hitting that burnout stage, right? And that's what the TEDx talk was really centered around, was really about burnout.
What do you find about, okay, so why can you visualize through telling us the exercise you do with people with the elastic?
Sure. So it came to me, I drive a lot and I commute, and I'm a lot in the car and a lot of times. And so what I've been able to do is this is a creative spot for me, in terms of thinking, in terms of being by myself, in terms of being uber creative. And so as I was thinking about capacity and continuing to evolve the brand, I had this elastic. I always have a hairband elastic around my wrist. A lot of women do. And I took it off and I was like, oh my God. And I'm playing with it and I'm stretching it. And I'm like, this is what capacity is. So I coined the term capacity elasticity, because if you put this elastic band between your two index fingers and you stretch it, this represents your capacity, because there's some give in it, right? There's some stretch. But if you stretch it too much, by saying yes to too many things, and you keep stretching and stretching this elastic band, you will notice this like tension in your face, this tension in your body. And, because the elastic is about to snap. And that's how we walk around when we're overcommitted. We are just at our wits' end, like we just can't give anymore. And so I thought, what better way to like viscerally give people a quick understanding of what capacity feels like when we're way overcommitted. And, the opposite is when you're not intent, like when your elastic is not in tension, like there's not enough tension in it, like you probably have some capacity to say yes to some things and take some risks at this point. So that's really what that exercise is all about.
Okay. And I've watched you do this exercise with people. So they're holding it with their two fingers
Yeah.
and they're, it's like they got it on their index for their right and their left. And then you're
Yep.
asking them questions. You're like, okay, you have to say yes to everything I say. Do you
Yes.
want to come to Friday's party? Can you do this next week? And they're like,
Yes.
yes, 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 yes. And it's so mind blowing for people to be like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Right? Like they
Yes.
have to have this visual and it's so simple. And yet, like, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Yeah.
Do you know any of the science of why people cannot say no and why they're not honoring their own capacity? Because I truly believe we all, and it might not be science or the reason why we don't honor our own capacity. Do you know, what do you think about that?
I do. I like nerd out on human behavior, and there's a lot. And like some of the biggest culprits are really there's three that I talk about a lot. Number one is the people pleasers. So these are people who really do want to do everything for everybody and really please, and be, just be kind. And they think that by doing this, they're helping and they're making people happy. But on the flip side, they're really um, they're exhausting themselves. The second reason is really avoidance of conflict. So people will say yes just so that they don't have to get into this discussion or conversation about why it is that they can't do it. So yes is a lot easier. And number three is like this superhuman behavior or persona. So we get into this phase or this state where we say yes to everything. And most of the times we pull it off because that's why we keep doing it. And it feeds our ego. There's like this adrenaline piece that we get addicted to, and this perception that we're able to do it all. And I want your listeners to understand something specifically about this third piece, about this superhuman, superwoman, in the female
Oh,
case.
Lordy.
Yeah, it's just like we actually train people or teach people how to treat us.
That's
So
like
we
one of my
teach
favorite
people.
quotes.
Yeah, like it's so true. It's like we teach people how to treat us. So if you say yes all the time, people are going to come back and ask you. And the moment you say no, get ready for shit to hit the fan, because they're going to be like, what? You always say yes. Like, what's wrong? What happened? And it's just going to be a not so favorable response.
Yeah. You just said something that I had a little light bulb moment where, okay, so everyone, especially I'm only going to speak for the culture that I live in, right? There's people
Yeah.
all around the world that are listening to this. So I'm talking about Western culture and the marketing that goes behind motherhood, womanhood of super mom, right? Even book titles with how to have it all.
Yeah.
And I just realized that not only, I know you and I are on a very similar mission to deconstruct this for women and say, like, pay attention. What does it mean to actually have it all to you? Because I'm sure it means less than what you already have now.
Right.
And, it means freedom and space and all of that. So why aren't you giving that to yourself? But I compared this to the current culture in fitness and food. And because I think there's a movement going on there. And obviously, if you're in this conscious space and you've been doing the work for a while and you actually talk to people who have been in the industry for, like, I'm not a fitness person or a food person, like meaning in those industries.
Right.
But I'm a personal, I don't want to say victim to that marketing, but just, I'm very attracted to working with people now or learning from people who are very much in alignment with what feels good to you. And, just show up every day and move your body from a place of energy and eat for fuel. Don't eat restriction. Don't do all this. So I never had this aha moment, but I feel like we've we've become victim to marketing of who women need to be, especially, when they started working, and it's like, oh, you don't get to say no to anything else. You just have to add more onto your plate. So,
Right.
I know you're a professor.
Yes.
And just curious, that's all I know is that you're a professor. I know what you teach, but like, what do you notice with your students? What do you observe? What do you see going on in the culture out there for, I mean, it doesn't just have to be women in general, but do they even know what capacity is? And are they like astonished when you talk about it?
It's such a good question. I mean, like if I just touch on what you just talked about in terms of like this victim of marketing, I think it's like success, our definitions of success, which differ from woman to woman. But when we're fed all of these things in terms of like quick fixes, instant gratification, do more, be more, look like this, be this, do this, like I think, it really clouds our own ability to have our own personal definition of success. So I love what you just said about all of that and how we just need to take a step back and be like, whoa, what is it that's going to make me happy? And fueling, yeah, like using food for fuel is really where I'm at right now too. So amazing there. The student part in terms of being in the classroom. So I decided to teach people about capacity because as a prof, I teach students about time management, prioritization, decision-making skills, like those things we are taught throughout our lives in formal education and maybe informal education. But it's something that always enters into my curriculum. But no one teaches anybody about capacity. And like that's just, your listeners now know really briefly the difference between the two. And so when I teach this to students, they're like, yes, like we need this too, because in their lives, they're different. They don't have necessarily family. If we're talking about a younger student, they don't have family or these same obligations as, women with kids and with careers at that point, but they still have everything thrown at them to purchase, to be, to do, to sign up for, to make 24/7. So they also struggle with different opportunities on how to choose what it is that they need to do and what it is that they should sign up for, what it is that they should be part of. So every time I do bring in a workshop on capacity for my students, they have these aha moments as well. And they start to make some changes.
I think there's so much. It's like that fear and guilt, right? Do you talk
Yeah.
about managing that? Because you're like, I've heard from, some of my friends or people in my community who do not have children or maybe are single and
Mm-hmm.
say, well, I have the capacity because I don't have a family or I have more space, but they're still burning themselves out. And, when you get clear and really talk to them, they're like, I'm doing this from a lack place and from a place
Mm-hmm.
of fear or guilt.
Yeah. I think there's two things in that. There's FOMO, the fear of missing out, but there's also this expectation. And I was dealing with this with some women in corporate who have these, high profile jobs, but who don't have children and are expected to do more. So it's like an unsaid expectation. Like it's not articulated like, well, you don't have, Johnny to go home to, therefore you have 3 extra hours this evening to work on this project. But they felt the pressure where they didn't have that. It's not an excuse, but they didn't have that rationale, that reason to say, I must go home or I have to go pick up kids at daycare. They didn't have that. And they just felt like if I don't have that, then I have no reason to leave early. And so there's this interesting dilemma going on in that, where I think there's a lot more conversation and a lot more articles being published around that. So it's either the fear of missing out or this notion of how do I cut work off if I don't have, the typical, or not the typical, but like the family to go home to, which is socially acceptable.
I would be the person to like make up a secret family. So that'd be like, I gotta go, gotta pick up my son from daycare. And people are like, show me pictures, show me pictures. And I would be like pulling pictures off Instagram or something. Like,
I love it.
oh
yeah.
my gosh. It's like, it's none of your business. Like, who cares what I'm doing or where I want to go? And I think this all comes back to, of course, like the fear of judgment, right? The fear of missing out, the fear of all of these things. And then you end up in this place where you're not happy, you're miserable, you're depleted, and you ask yourself, how did I get here? And this is the beauty. I don't know how we can convince people, but I'm like, it has been micro action steps that you've taken on a daily basis that get you to this point where you wake up in the morning and say, not this. And the beauty of that is you can turn yourself around and take micro action steps in the opposite direction and look in the mirror one day and say, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Like, this is beautiful. I'm energized again. So I did have a really, really good thing that I was going to say, but then I kind of left my brain. When people are, actually, this is what I was going to ask you. What is your story? Like, why are you so passionate about talking about capacity?
Because I can see the difference that it makes in people's lives with one change in a vocabulary, like in your vocabulary, like one word swap or addition in your vocabulary. Like, you talk about micro steps. No one wants to talk about micro steps. No one. Like, everybody, like, I was like, oh yeah, 1%. And oh yeah, like, I'm taking baby steps. Let's just get real. No one has any patience for that, because we are really all about, like, can we get this done today? Like, can I change tomorrow? Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I signed up for a program with a personal trainer, and I paid substantial amount of money because the promise that he legitimately told me, like, the change that I would experience, I was sold. But in my own mind, I'm like, yes, like, I can attain that. But I didn't create capacity for any of it. So all of the meal prep, like, so all of the, like, the cleansing, all of the things that I needed to do to reduce inflammation, the workouts, like, and he had check-ins, it was online. Like, I had zero excuses not to get this done. But the thing I didn't do is I did not create capacity for it. And I'll tell you, here's the thing. This is what it boils down to. Capacity is all about saying yes to something, but also knowing that you have to say no to something else. So I said, yeah, hell yeah, I'm all in on this training, 16 weeks. I'm going to look and feel great, reduce inflammation, reduce brain fog, maybe have some muscle tone that I've been looking for in my calves that I've never had, blah, blah, blah. And I said no to nothing else. So I didn't create any space. I didn't create capacity for any of that.
That's
and
interesting.
and that's what it comes down to.
But aren't you, and here I am playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
If you're saying no to other things, like, are you sacrificing to get what you want?
Sacrificing. It's such a bad word.
Like if I have to wake up early because I want to create a morning routine, that means I have to go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
And then if I do that, I'm missing time with my husband and my children, and I'm sacrificing.
Here's the other thing too, is that, are you really sacrificing, or actually are you going to have a higher quality experience because you're going to feel better than, that hour in the morning where personally we're like, hurry up, let's go, lunch is packed, let's get out the door, outfits are picked, like, let's get dressed, brush your teeth. Like, that's not really quality. But if I were to get up a little bit earlier, work out, I would feel better. I probably wouldn't be as tired. So my quality of time spent would probably be a lot richer. So it's really just kind of turning that around.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you actually sacrificing? Like, so I think it's just a very personal piece. But I love that you mentioned that, because that's the first barrier, right? That's one of the first barriers. What am I going to have to give up? You have to give up anything.
I know. It's such a mindset shift, because I talk a lot about beliefs and stories, and I teach a lot about that, like going deeper and asking yourself, what's the story you're telling yourself? That by you feeling more energized and present and a higher vibration, where you're actually, I was talking to someone today about, vibration and the thoughts that we tell ourselves. And I'm like, if you show up like you have a big chip on your shoulder, you're like that vicious dog that nobody wants to be around. I love animals. My fight or flight response goes up, and I know I'm not going to put myself in harm's way and come closer to that animal. When our energy shows up like that, why would I be attracted to be like, oh, come here. No, I'm going to approach the animal AKA human, who has their tail wagging, who looks friendly. And that's how we can read human behavior. So if you're like this vicious animal, and 9 out of 10 times, now I'm going down a rabbit hole, but 9 out of 10 times, I know that animal that's angry and, barking is scared.
Yes.
And is not actually going to hurt me, but that animal is trying to protect itself. So we are animals. We have to realize, why am I trying to protect myself? Why am I, closing myself off? Why am I not open to receive? Why do I think that by doing something that's going to change my energy, I'm taking away from others?
Beautifully said. Oh my God. So all of your listeners, if you're not doing it, you should be clapping right now, because that was so awesome. And I just want to ask you, if you could be any animal, which one would you be, Heather?
Most likely a dog. I love dogs.
Okay.
But I'm like, I want to be a dog that, was birthed, went to a loving home as a puppy and lived a very bougie life on a farm, didn't have to cook or clean for myself. I mean, animals, I don't know, my dogs live a very nice life. And then I feel guilty because I don't take them for a walk, every day. And I'm like, listen, you're fed, you're not abused, you're loved. That is enough. And I think
okay.
You're okay, you're safe. And I think this is the bigger problem, which is feeling enough, like enoughness. So do you talk a lot about that in Capacity?
No, we don't really talk a lot about that. About being enough. I think it's about doing, right? And so it's about really aligning our values to our decision making. And I go deep in this, especially in the coaching and in the modules and the coursework that we do together, because if your capacity is broken, you can't time manage, you can't prioritize well, and you certainly can't make decisions with a sound mind if your capacity is broken. And so understanding your values, because that's where capacity is entrenched, is like, what are those top values of yours? From what point do you live? Like for me, it's gratitude, and it's connection, and generosity. And I have many values, but those are the three that that's just who I am. That's how people would describe me. I mean, I have gratitude tattooed on my body. Like it's just part of how and I had to honor that, because the whole gratitude thing wasn't cool 10 years ago. Generosity was like, people didn't really get it. Like, are you too generous? Like, why are you being so generous? And connection, some people just don't necessarily value that. But for me, that's when I show up, that's what you get. Those are the three things that really, like, the aura that you'll get from me.
I have to agree. I have to agree. And I think it's really important for us to stop and reassess why. Why did we say yes in the first place? And, we can do the work. We can, like you said, you can hire the trainers, you can hire the coaches. But if you're not all in and you're not willing to create that capacity, you are wasting your money.
Yeah.
And time, and setting yourself up for failure. So if you know that you're doing that in any area of your life, reassess why you keep self-sabotaging and position. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to get uncomfortable. You have to get uncomfortable saying no. I don't know about you, but I think we had this discussion, maybe not. I had challenges where I would say, okay, the month of whatever, I'm not going to reach out to anybody. Like, I'm not going to reach out to any of my friends. And I'm going to see who reaches out to me.
Okay.
For the month of September, because I would be the one who would always create the plans.
Right.
And then the other month was, I'm going to say no to everything that is not in alignment with my current, big goals.
Sure.
And it was very uncomfortable.
I can imagine. Yeah. Well, what crept in?
Well, actually, I have this, story that I was a mean person by doing this, that I was like, I was not, which is a variation of I'm not good enough.
Right.
I should, right? Because I'm a recovering rescuer. So I'm so used to being the one that connects everybody and, they're expecting this from me. And so I had to change that pattern. It was really difficult and uncomfortable.
I love that you just said that too, the recovering rescuer, because I think there's that can apply to different people in different circumstances, whether you're the person to patch family issues, whether you're the person in a job, in social work, whether, that's just your role in life, whether you're paid to do it or not. I love that you just said that. Mm-hmm. It's interesting. It is interesting. Yeah. Because the burnout piece is really, that this is where this all started. So Capacity Creator, as you had asked me this in the very beginning too. So just quickly, like this was born out of burnout, out of the doctor writing me a letter and handing it over. And I read it out loud and it said, this patient is disabled for 1 month.
Wow.
And I was like, I don't really, that's not going to work for me because I have stuff to do. But I, eventually did take the time, and that's where this was like, I can't be the only one. So I need to fix this. So I want to fix it for other people. And that's where this all came from.
So during your 1 month, you went home and created a whole curriculum.
I actually negotiated 1 week with the doctor and went home, yes, and then created this.
Oh my gosh. It's hard. We have to change those mental patterns.
100%. It's like a neural pathway, right?
Yeah. So what are you up to these days? Where can people find more of you? And what does Melanie got going on?
I like Melly too. That's okay. You can find me at capacitycreator.com. You can come follow me on Instagram, where I will share personal and professional stories and some fun pictures. And that's Capacity Creator or Melanie Sodka, like vodka with an S.
Oh my God.
That's
easy to remember.
It totally is. That's way, like it's, I introduce myself to my students. It's just easy. You can also find me on Facebook, where I have a community there. Those are the big places. I mean, you can come listen to my podcast that you can find on the website, also called Capacity Creator. I've been really creative with the names, but just helping people really understand the term is my objective.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I know we could continue this conversation forever, and
totally good.
I think it's really important. And I'm going to leave the listeners with this. You said something that was such a aha moment for me when we were in person one time. And when people say, hey, do you want to come to this party this weekend? Or can you do work on this project? You said, thank you. Something about thank you so much, but I don't have the capacity for that right now.
Yeah.
So instead of saying I don't have the time, saying I don't have the capacity.
Yeah. And you will see that people will be less likely to challenge you on that. There's almost like this mutual understanding, and people will probably just say, all right, cool. No problem.
Man, I wish people said that to me more often. I'd be like, is it time? Is it really time? And to be honest, I don't think they know that it's not time. It's capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I just urge people, just try it on and see what happens. And then I invite you to come and explore it further and see how it can help and enhance life and just make life a little bit more enjoyable. And I have to say, Heather, thank you again for having me on here, but you are a very generous, authentic, giving person. I mean, just, all of your podcasts and your material and your willingness to chat with people and share has been tremendous. From the moment I met you, you have offered to help and to share and to elevate. So I owe, world of gratitude to you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.